Well. Merry facilitation to us all. It's December 30th, I know, and it feels like it's the 45 minutes of the second half. And I think it's the perfect timing to start something or provocating so that we can start 2026 fresh and new. Why do we need to wait for New Year's for that, right? Let's do that on December 30th. All right, today we're kicking off the second season of the Tuesdays for Facilitation. These lives that I do here on LinkedIn, always on a Tuesday. Sometimes by myself, like today, sometimes inviting amazing people and talented guests to talk about how facilitation is inserted in their lives. That's very important, right? Tuesdays for Facilitation is started from a personal quest. Actually, it's a personal pain of constantly trying to explain what I do to people. And I feel like talking about it helps me improve and helps me and the others improve what exactly facilitation is or what facilitation can be, because that's exactly what it's about. It's about the possibilities of it and how we can practice. I mean, I think it helps us improve our pitch too, right? I have some notes here, some things that I decided to do today to kick off the second season. The very first season, fully on English. We're going to have guests from Europe, we're going to have guests from Africa. It's going to be very exciting. Today, I'm talking to you directly from Lagos, Nigeria. So if you're around town, it's a great time for us to meet. I'll be here throughout the month of January. All right. Once again, welcome to Tuesdays for Facilitation. I am Ty Barroso, your host, and this is the first episode of the second season. The first season was all done in Portuguese, so very exciting for what can come out of this one, right? I have prepared the session and divided it into four parts. The first one is I will quickly introduce myself to tell you a little bit of how I got here, how not here to Lagos, but here to facilitation. The second part, I will talk a little bit what facilitation is at its core at the end of it, and how you can and maybe already doing it to facilitate your day-to-day life. The third part, I will present you some practical success stories. And the last part, I'll tell you a little bit about why I think your organizational culture needs a approach to facilitation so that you can do better with your team and better with your stakeholders in general. So without further ado, as I said before, I am Ty Barroso. I am born and raised in my country, Rio de Janeiro. But some might call me a global citizen, right? I was 13 years old when my parents endeavor our first migration process. We moved to the US, and I remember I felt so amazing about, going to moving around, and the fact that people ate things differently, the fact that the cars were differently sized, the fact that people moved around and people spoke another language. All of it got me fascinated. And that when I was 13 years old, I decided I wanted to live 1 year in every country. We can realize I wasn't the best at geography at the time, but I've grown up to call 6 countries my home, my house. I've lived abroad a couple of times. Now I'm not. I'm back into my country, Rio de Janeiro, but I'm very happy and that I am fulfilling this child dream, right? I have been facilitating process for the past 15 years. I know this face looks young, but I'm 37 years old. And one question that I always ask to guests that come here is if they remember when it was the first time that they felt like they were facilitating something or they felt like they could call themselves facilitator. And I remember I can't remember exactly that point, but I do have a little storyline of maybe how I got there, right? And I think the first point of it is I was raised in a very supportive family. Many people wouldn't start this conversation like this, but I think it's something very important. knowing that when I talk about collaboration, I come from a collaborative family. My parents always consulted me, even though I was tiny and I didn't know exactly what I was talking about their decisions. So I have been part of my family until I was a teenager and then really didn't care about it. But I have been part of my family decisions since I was very, very, very young. And I think that gives me some type of empowerment that also allows me to be a little bit more of who I am today, right? So going to school in the US, I did 7th and 8th grade, junior high school. I was I had many opportunities to become a leader, and I was very encouraged to to have leadership positions and possibilities of doing different stuff. There was a leadership program. I remember it was so different from school in Brazil. That gave me also a perspective of seeing a broader world. And I was just 13 years old. So you can imagine how that actually had the turned the key in my brain, right? So going back to Brazil, I went to university. Many of you don't know that. Well, many of you don't know me, maybe, but I had studied architecture and urbanism. And right at the beginning of school, I already knew that I didn't want to be an architect, right? I went all to the social architecture. I went all to urbanism. So I started working and trying to get into that point. And I was also very active in the student movement, and in our student federation, we would discuss a lot about the right to the city and how our bodies occupy the city, right? How our spaces are made for us to occupy or to not occupy the cities. And that made me have an interesting perspective of space, of place to be, of bodies that occupy spaces. We didn't discuss at the time, we're talking about more than 10 years ago, we didn't discuss much about race and gender like we do today, and like the student movement does today, but we did discuss a lot about our rights of being in different places. And I think that's an important fact of how I've built my career wise, right? Then I became an intern in urbanism, and I was challenged to work at housing programs for different municipalities of the city. Now, the social interesting housing plan was composed of two parts, a technical part and a participatory part. I was taking care, as the intern of the company, I was taking care of them both. It was a private company. I was doing public work. And the whole idea of having a participatory reading of a place was so amazing for me at the time. It felt just a little bit like the same feeling that I had when I moved to the US, and I got fascinated with everything. And I have a good story to tell about that. So when we talk about a technical reading, we're talking about, professionals, urbanists, geographists, and other historians and other professionals that could add up to create this report about the city and tell if if the municipality needs or not a housing program, right? Now, when we go to the participatory part of this report, you have to invite the civil society organizations, because as it's understood, it's the ones that are living in the field that knows about the field. And here's the magic about it. We, technical professionals, amazing people that, have studied so many years at university. At the end of the day, we had absolute no idea of what it was to live in those municipalities. I even have a funny story about it. We're doing the plan for a specific municipality on the state of Rio, and a bridge fell, like it broke down, it fell, it wasn't working anymore. And this bridge, so we as technicians were like, just build the bridge back. Like, you guys need a bridge, just build the bridge back. And then on the participatory process, we learned that the people in the city didn't want the bridge back, because with the bridge falling, it actually started a little economy of people crossing it by boats and creating ferries. And now these boats are not only going from one side to the other, they're going to other parts of the river side, right? And they had a problem with the bridge. When the bridge was there, people who were not well intended and criminals, they were trying to gather money for people who were crossing the bridge. So that made it very unsafe. What it was decided at the end of the day is that the bridge wasn't going to be reconstructed, and we will have a better infrastructure for the people who were crossing around by boats. So this is a little bit of the importance of asking people about what are their needs, because they know they are the ones living it on every single days of their lives, right? I am not an architect. I am a proud dropout. I decided that what I wanted to do was different and bigger than what the formal education was giving me. So, and since then, I'm a dropout. It's been like this year, it's going to be 14 years that I dropped out. And I have had the opportunity of working from the favelas of Rio de Janeiro to rural villages in Senegal, from indigenous communities in Paraguay to sea-level meetings in Europe, from migrant neighborhoods in Portugal, all the way to international foundations all over the globe. I like to say, and yesterday I was just having this conversation, I like to say that my reach is like something between, I don't know, maybe, deep Senegal, a rural village in deep Senegal, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, all the way to sea-level meetings, to hosting and facilitating sea-level meetings for multinationals, like I just did last month. So it's quite big. It's quite a big of a reach. I'm really proud about my career and about everything that I built. And I think Tuesdays for Facilitation is also a way for me to give back and to talk a little bit more about how, facilitating can make our lives better. Lucy, good morning, Lucy. Let me show your great for you to be here too. If you're in Lagos, let's meet up. All right, so talking about facilitation, right? The origin of the word facilitation is from Latin, as you might have imagined. It's from facilitate, it's from facilitari, which is make it easy, make it doable, right? It's from facilis, easy, doable, approachable. It literally means make it possible, right? At the end of the day. At the 20th century, with the rise of humanist psychology and participatory education, facilitation took a deeper meaning and a deeper step, I would say, to become a fundamental way of creating conditions for others or for a collective of people to think, decide, and learn together. So it's a way of creating the proper conditions, right, for people to get somewhere together. So at the core, facilitation is not about making it easy, it's about making things possible, right? Think about this. When you arrive in a place and you invite people to go to a place, maybe a conference, a meeting, everyone that arrives is bringing their stuff with them. And when I say their stuff, it's like their backpack is full of stories. It's full of repertoire. It's full of repertory. It's full of what they bring, their knowledge, their life experiences. We human beings are learning all the time. We learn all the time. And when we talk about our organization or the places where we work, we're talking about that too. All of your collaborators, your employees, your leaders, they come with stories, they come with experiences, and most of them are way more interesting than what's written down on their CV. So maybe we're talking about, like, maybe that person doesn't know how to make an Excel sheet, but they did grow up in a very busy family, and that made them learn how to listen better. Maybe you have someone that doesn't know exactly, the A plus B or the concept of what innovation is at the core, but they have been very creative in solving their problems because maybe they grew up in an environment where they didn't have many resources, and that made them very creative, and that made them very innovative on their solutions. So those are very powerful skills that you can only see when the process are facilitated and not demanded. So when you ask someone to do something, you are, and to do that by themselves also, you are trusting that they have the knowledge, that they have the know-how to do that by themselves, and to do that in some way that somehow probably on your head. And that's the most, that's a big problem that we have in organizations, right? It's a bunch of people talking, trying to ask people to do what's on in their heads, not on the other person's head. Facilitating makes it find a place in between so that someone's knowledge can gather up with someone's knowledge, and together you can create something amazing. And when I say create something amazing, we might be talking about a new product, a new service, to improve a process, or to improve a product, or to improve a process. We might be talking about a plan, a report, a document, a collective document, a manifesto. We might be talking about so many things that are possible when we're talking about collective intelligence, right? So I like to say that if I had a religion, I think my religion would be collective intelligence, and the dogma of it would be the participatory processes. Now, when we talk about participatory processes in facilitation, we're not just asking people to go there and watch me present what I made for them. So in that story of the bridge, it's not like, hey, civil society, here's the bridge, the design of the bridge I made for you. Since your bridge fell, here's what you actually need to do. Build a new one, and this one is better, more beautiful. I don't know. It's for me saying, hey, we have a problem. It's our problem now, right? Your bridge fell. What are we going to do about it? What should we do about it? And it looks very easy to solve, and it looks like it's very it can be very fluid, like you can just be talking about it and like, yeah, no, the bridge part, no, it wasn't a good idea, it was a good idea, it was not. But every time we, as the richness we embark in the room, like every time we get this richness of people in the very same room, we also have a lot of discussions and a lot of stress, right? Because the way we communicate, the way we verbally communicate, sometimes is not the best. Actually, verbal communication is not the best way for us to get into absolutely anything. So, if we're talking about a participatory process, we're inviting people who are directly affected to it to participate on it. I've given that as an example of the urban planning part. Now, if we're thinking about it organizationally, like if we're thinking about our organizations, what would be a participatory process, right? There are parts of our work, and I'm going to be very generalist here, but there are parts of our work where I have to do my part, you have to do my part, my colleague has to do their part, and that's it. Many parts of this work can be shared because it will affect everyone of the company or everyone of the organization. It will need to be shared. And sometimes, let's just say, for example, if you want to implement a new tool, if you want everyone to use Teams, I hate Teams, but a lot of companies use it. But let's say that you're getting stressed out about it because you want people to use it. But the people who decided that you use Teams, they're not the ones who are using Teams probably every day, or maybe they even are. But a way for you to do it better is let's gather and let's see how we can use Teams better than what we're doing now. How are we collectively going to understand what are the resources, what we can do with this tool, what are the possibilities that we can get with this tool? So when we talk about facilitating, we are talking about that reach. I'm not even talking about a social, economic, and territorial reach, but I'm also talking about a reach of possibilities of what you can do and work together. Now, there are many different approaches to facilitation. I have mine, and I invite you to, if you're hiring a facilitator, if you think you're a facilitator, I really encourage you to understand and advertise your approach. My approach is radical collaboration. What does that mean? I take all of the collaboration tools that there are and I stretch them out a little bit more so that we can get the radical part of it, right? What does that mean? I need people who make decisions in the room, and I need them to be able to be vulnerable. At the practical side, what does that mean at the end of the day is that C-levels, directors, leaders that understand my approach and they trust their team so much, they trust their knowledge, they trust the backpack each one of these people bring to the room, that they will gather and make, for example, strategic 5-year plans with the whole of the team, and not only with the directors, not only with the president, not only with the council. It's a very a specific way of dealing with your team. It's a very specific way of dealing with facilitation itself, of how you build things. And this is 300% connected with your organizational culture, right? So what is your organizational culture? Do you do things together? Is someone the head of it? Is someone actually being in the head and thinking about all of the possibilities, all of the stories? Or are you, as a leader, actually bringing people to the table, not only to sit and eat, but to cook with you, to decide about the ingredients, to spice it together? Are you doing that as a leader? Are you doing, and I'm talking about leaders, we can talk about all of the C-levels, but we know that leadership is not actually only about seniority. It's about who you are as a person. And that might go all the way from your family, as your family leader, all the way to your other through your other social interactions, right? Or relational interactions that you do with the people and with the people around you. It could be on the church, it could be maybe you play a sport and you might be playing with people. So I like to say that I think facilitation is a skill that everyone that really cares about people should have, right? If you care about people, you should learn how to be a better facilitator. If you want to get the best, the most innovative, the most diverse ideas, if you want to literally get the juice out of the knowledge of the people that you hired, you should learn how to be a better facilitator, and you should have your people being better facilitators. Now, I have some cases to show you, because I think it's always easier for me to explain when I tell you stories about projects I have done. And I'd like to start saying about this project that I mentioned earlier. It's Comcom. So I was invited, I was in Senegal, and that was in 2020. I was invited to design the methodology of the community communication laboratory for an NGO in the north of Senegal, in a village called Gandiol. And I was invited to live at the village, and I'm like, why not, right? Why not? There was just one problem, I didn't know how to speak French, and I didn't know how to speak Wolof. I had to figure it out. How am I going to create a methodology of community communication if I might not know how to communicate? And here's a step of it. Well, my French, it peaked. Like, if I was learning French like this, it was like, woo! And then I had to learn Wolof too. So when I get there, I have this group of people. I'm talking about 60 people from 14 years old to 62 years old. You guys have seen that I like the range thing, right? So I have 60 people, and some of them didn't know how to read or write. Some of them were finishing their PhDs. Now, how am I going to put all of this knowledge in the same room and make it and bring the right tools so that the people don't feel less or more than each other, if you know what I'm thinking? This is very important also when you're facilitating a process and you have a collaborative approach, right? How am I going to get all of these people to collaborate and create something together? So what we decided to do was to design a game, because in every culture there is always a game. The game is called Comcom, which in Wolof means richness. It also come from communitaire communication. It has 7 steps as a game, right? It has steps, it has characters, it has goals. And the idea is that they divided themselves in groups. They had to investigate and analyze what the community communication campaigns they were going to be working on, Then they have to design this communication campaign. They have to make a budget out of it, send us the budget. We would approve or not approve the budget and the money they're asking for. They would execute it, then they would evaluate it and celebrate it. All right. So we crossed the whole path of how to build, a process in that sense. Comcom was very successful. We had 3 cohorts of the game. It is a game I co-own, so it's only in French right now. So if you guys are interested into recreating and you think there's a contest where we can build community communication campaigns in your environment, please contact me. Here's some commercial. That's one very interesting case of how I got like this multiplicity of people to gather and contribute, even though they have completely different repertoires, right? Repertories. I always get confused with this word in English. Another case I wanted to talk to you about was the case of a newspaper, a community newspaper. I was the coordinator in Portugal. So the community newspaper already existed before I got there, and they had this role, like it's a community newspaper of a neighborhood. The neighborhood is a migrant neighborhood, so we talk about migrants. And when I got there, the whole idea was to make this newspaper into a tool of connecting locals and migrants. So now I'm taking, and I worked on it for 2 years. We had 3 editions of the newspaper. And throughout this process, what we did is we took off the migrant of the neighborhood as the object, and it became the subject. What does that mean? If before, journalists and volunteers were interviewing the migrants, now we have the migrants being able to interview other migrants or to write their stories. And this was very powerful. Throughout the 3 editions, we had 126 participants from 26 different countries. It's a number. And the newspaper was printed in different languages and all. So when we talk about inclusion and participation, how do we design these processes in a way that everyone feels part of it? And I will tell you one thing, I will allow you to contact any one of these 126 people and ask them if they were part of that construction. They were. How did we made it? We made it through the right tools and the right processes and the right questions, because facilitating is also about making the right questions. Now, going from one range to the other, last month I was in Lille, France, to facilitate the first ever global synergy meeting with the pricing leaders, right, from Leroy Merlin. And this is very interesting because now we're talking about different countries within Europe and outside of Europe, because we had Brazil and South Africa too. So we're talking about different countries, the same brand, the same store, and different pricing strategies, right? So what we see here is the first time that they have a meeting, because we're talking even about different currencies of money. So exchanging seemed like something very stressful, because of course someone from South Africa doesn't know what the problems are in Brazil. Of course, someone in France doesn't know what the problems are in Ukraine, right? But there is always something about this amazing collective intelligence that we can gather up. And this is what we did. Throughout 2 days, what we did was find ways to connect. And we found a bunch of very interesting insights that these leaders brought up that they could exchange. We did that through Lego Serious Play. It's one interesting facilitation methodology that I love to facilitate, but it's not my only approach. So Lego Serious Play is one of many. I like to say that I carry a big suitcase of tools and methodologies that I like to exchange, to mix and match. It's like a little bit of how you're traveling the world, and you mix up the words, you mix up the different spices. It's a little bit of like cooking too. So we're getting to the end because it is a 30 minutes live. I'm very excited. Hi Olu Wasei. I'm getting used to with the names. Um, Thank you very much for joining. Yes, I'll reach back for the DMs. All of the people that contacted me, I will contact you. It's been a very interesting arrival for me. So, without further ado, I'd like to finish this live talking with a little bit about why I think, and I don't only think, like it's a bet I do, about why I think every organization needs a facilitation approach. So when we talk about organizational culture, we're talking about a set of things, right? We're talking about our vision, our values. We're talking about the way we do things, but not specifically the way we do things. Because if we say, no, the way we do it, it's collaborative. It's a beautiful word, like collaborative is almost everywhere, or our communication is effective. No organization has effective communication. Just so you know, I've I've seen many around the world in different languages. No one has effective communication. It's a human problem. But when we bring something so broad as like we collaborate, what does that exactly mean? Collaborate, right? What exactly does that mean? When we say, when I arrive into a new organization as a new employee, as a new collaborator, as a consultant, or whatever, do I know what that collaboration means? Like, do I really know what that collaboration means? And that's why I say it's so important for you to understand through a process and go through your culture, for your organizational culture, not only with words. You know, there are many ways to do that, with your body, with your presence, with your hearing. And it seems like it's stressful for you to be discussing what collaboration is, what it means. Collaboration is, everyone should know what collaboration is. But mid to long term, the results of it, the engagement of your collaborators, the engagement of your people is going to be so impactful. You will never regret it. So when we talk about bringing facilitators to facilitate your strategic planning, bringing facilitators to facilitate something you need to create collectively, not only a team building activity, it's not about just playing and no reflection. It's about playing and reflection, if that's the case. Sometimes we don't play. But here I'm talking about the importance of bringing the tools and making it easy for people to collaborate and to engage with you. Like make it doable, create the right conditions for your collaborators to do stuff. We have a training at Awele, my organization, called In-House. It's a bespoke facilitation and experience design training. For who it is for, right? It's in-house, so it has to be for one organization, so that we can dive deep into how this organization already does things, how they can improve doing things, and how we can do something together out of it. So when we talk about an experience design and facilitation training, we're talking about the possibility of understanding how we relate with each other as an organization, but also how our team or us, we relate with our clients or with our other stakeholders, okay? Many organizations have that. Many organizations actually, they have to, like they're, for example, educational organizations, organizations that have coaches, consultants, consultancy firms. You have your approach. Like you can have your approach. We can design that together. It's just for me to get to get to sell a little bit of my stuff here. But I would like to tell you once again, now passing my time, that I'm very excited about this season. We are going to talk about a bunch of interesting stuff. I will contact all of these amazing people from Nigeria that contacted me. I hope to be able to see all of you. Maybe I'm going to have to create an event and invite all of you to come. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.